I'm Nick Snow with Oil and Gas Journal in Washington, D.C. Kathryn Klaber quickly got to the point when she addressed the American Gas Association's Natural Gas Roundtable luncheon on November 29th. The Marcellus Shale Coalition's president and executive director put it this way, quote, "A lot of how this plays out is going to involve relationships and how we work with local communities," end quote. The organization is probably the most prominent industry advocate in that increasingly productive tight shale gas region. It's also somewhat unique because it deals with residents and regulators in several states. Coalition members have stepped up to meet the challenge, according to Klaber. Quote, "There's a lot of talk about best practices and how we go above and beyond regulations. The industry has to step up and explain how it will deal with any problems," she said. Quote, "The regulatory landscape is changing quickly," she continued. "That doesn't mean simply saying no, but actively having input on regulations to make sure they're fair and effective," end quote. Klaber noted that Pennsylvania now has the country's strictest dissolved solids law, 500 parts per million. MSC members also have quit disposing of water at grandfathered facilities, she said. This comes as Marcellus Shale gas development creates jobs and benefits local economies, she added. Quote, "The energy industry is contributing jobs not just at the well site and along the pipeline, but also in other industries, particularly chemicals, which sees new sources of secure supplies," end quote, she said. Places like Williamsport and Washington County, Pennsylvania, are among the nation's top employment growth areas, Klaber pointed out. Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia are competing for an ethane cracker and its attendant jobs and economic benefits, she said. Klaber said that the states also have responded differently to the prospect of significantly more gas production. Pennsylvania moved quickly to modernize its water management and well casing regulations. New York moved carefully to make more certain its laws address development impacts. Ohio moved aggressively to define roles for municipalities. Quote, "Pennsylvania got it right but not perfect, so that a lot of gas is being delivered to businesses and consumers. There's room for improvement and we're working on that," end quote, the MSC president said. Quote, "But we're ahead of New York, where there aren't the necessary new regulations yet. I think that's costing it business," end quote. "Overcoming opposition remains a challenge, particularly in areas new to gas production," she conceded. Quote, "The free fall has stopped. We are doing well where operations are happening because we're hiring. Our biggest remaining challenge is educating people where development isn't happening, primarily urban areas," Klaber said. Quote, "We recognize there are a lot of legitimate questions about what's happening out there because it's happening fast," she added. Klaber's address came more than a week before the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency released for public comment and scientific peer review draft findings of its investigation of drinking water supplies in Pavilion, Wyoming, and possible impacts from nearby gas drilling. Questions were quickly raised about several of the report's preliminary conclusions. It still showed how much hard work remains for shale gas producers and their advocates. That's Watching Government for this week. In Washington, I'm Nick Snow for Oil and Gas Journal.